Karmajam buddhiyukta hi phalam tyakva manisina janmabandha vinirmukta padam gachanti anamayam. Very nice verse. And the translation is, by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Karmajam buddhiyukta hi phalam tyaktva manishana janma bandha vinir mukta padam gajanti anamayam. Okay, so purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58th verse says, Samasritaye padapalava plavam mahat padam punya yaso murare bhavam buddhir vatsapadam param padam padam yat vipadam nate sam. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti, liberation. The ocean of the material world is like the water contained in the calf's footprint. Padam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant action will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world, but one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time, death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this verse Karmajam buddhiyukta hi palam tyakva manishana janmabandha vinirmukta padam gajanti anamayam. So there's some very nice words in this verse. So by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. And this is a wonderful verse, and it's telling us how to become free of karma. How do we become free of karma? Well, we engage in devotional service. And what do we mean by devotional service? That means that whatever we do, it should be done to please Krishna and Guru. In other words, first we have to please Guru and then Krishna, because the spiritual master is the representative of the Lord. So we can't do one without the other. So we begin by pleasing the Guru, the bona fide Guru, and then that, and if the Guru is pleased, that means that Krishna is. How do you please the Guru? You follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness and engaged in loving service without any material motive. The material motive is what contaminates something. Well, not something. It contaminates the service that we do if we have a material motive. But if we don't have a material motive, then the only motive we have is to please the Lord. In other words, we're not like Mayavadis. Mayavadis say, well, you have to give up everything. No, we don't give up everything. We give up material motives, but we replace them with spiritual motives to please Guru and Krishna. We're not Mayavadis. The Mayavadis think, look, any activity is going to cause karma. So just give up all activities. Just meditate on nothing or on the tip of your nose or whatever. And that way you don't create any karma. But actually, that is creating karma because we are meant to serve Krishna. We're not meant to just meditate silently on the tip of our nose. So all that type of so-called yoga is not really yoga. Yoga is meant to connect to Krishna. It's not meant to connect to the tip of your nose. So, or to make a blank white sheet in your brain. The whole idea is to meditate on the holy name and meditate on Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no difference between the name of Krishna and Krishna himself. So, therefore, real meditation is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's not silent meditation. It's not sitting in a certain place. It's not breathing in on one nostril or the other nostril, or all those things. It's basically engaging in devotional service to Krishna and always chanting the glories of the Lord. That's real connection, a real yoga. Do they teach this? No. They don't teach this today. They think yoga is something that's good for your health. It helps your spinal column or something. and and then they talk about different asanas, and there's different types of yoga, of course. They even include sex in yoga. There are yoga schools that engage in sex. So we can see how the how far away people have gone from what yoga is all about. But it's a big business. People make a living by having yoga studios, and people go there and they do some exercises and they feel good. But that doesn't really solve the problem of birth, death, old age, and disease. Yoga, the real purpose is to connect with Krishna. You don't connect by meditating on the tip of your nose. That's not connecting to Krishna. So, uh, and also it said, Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrita duskrite tasmat yogaya yujasvam yoga karma sukoshalam. That's the previous verse. This is second chapter, 50th verse, which says, a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Now, this explains things correctly about yoga. Real yoga is devotional service. By devotional service, we become free of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, striving for the real yoga is the art of all work. So, what is real yoga? Real yoga is devotional service. It's not twisting your body like a pretzel. It's not engaging in breathing exercises. One time, this crazy man, uh, uh, he was trying to explain to me what is yoga, and he said it's all based on controlling your breath. And he said, and it's not just it's not Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's not yoga. He said, the real yoga, he said, was breathing exercises. Now I don't know how he got that into his mind, but he so his whole point was that what we were doing was wrong. That the real yoga was learning breathing exercises. So this is called ignorance. And in the purport, it says, in purport to text 50, since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. So that's the real yoga. Purify yourself. And how do you do that? You engage in the service of the Lord. It has nothing to do with health. It has nothing to do with breathing exercises. It has nothing to do with twisting your body this way or that way, or controlling your breath, and so forth. So it's all based on the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. And what is that? The Bhagavad Gita teaches one to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna in all respects. And in that way, one becomes liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, meaning karma, birth after birth. So, how can we surrender to Lord Sri Krishna? Well, it begins by surrendering to the bona fide spiritual master. So, there are gurus and kangaroos. So, we should not surrender to the kangaroo. We should surrender to bona fide gurus. And who is a bona fide guru? One who simply repeats what Krishna has said and validated also by what the guru has said. And who is a guru? A guru is someone who simply repeats what Krishna has said. So any deviation from that is bogus. So first we have to learn what Krishna has said. How do you do that? You come and listen to classes of Bhagavad Gita. Who spoke Bhagavad Gita? Krishna. So everything you need to learn about what Krishna said is by studying Bhagavad Gita with the help of bona fide gurus. Then you will also learn who is a bona fide guru and who is not, because that's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Bona fide guru is someone who simply repeats what Krishna says and doesn't deviate. Now, how do you know if the guru deviates? Well, that's the whole point. The beginning of spiritual life is when you start chanting Hare Krishna and hearing Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita will explain who Krishna is, because the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna speaking about himself and telling Arjuna who he is and how to please him and everything about himself. Bhagavat means the supreme personality of Godhead, and Gita means the song. So it's the song about who is God, who's the supreme personality of Godhead. So this is is it easy? Is this easy to understand? Yeah, it's very simple to understand if we carefully hear Bhagavad Gita spoken by genuine devotees. And if you just read it on yourself, yeah, you'll understand some things, but there'll be a lot of things you'll be confused about. And if you avoid associating with devotees and hearing from genuine devotees, you won't be able to ask any questions. Therefore, it's very easy to end up, even though you're reading Bhagavad Gita, it's very easy to end up with false understanding of Bhagavad Gita. In other words, speculation. All right, so then the purport quotes this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58 verse. Tamasrita yej padapalava pulvam mahat padam punya yaso murare bhavam buddhir vatsapadam parampadam padam yat vipadam natisam. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti. The ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikunta, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. It's a tremendous, wonderful verse, and it's explaining basically someone who surrenders at the lotus feet of the Lord becomes liberated. And all the miseries and complications of the material world are almost eliminated. Why does it say almost eliminated? Because we have free will. It's always possible that we can make mistakes, no matter how advanced we are. So it is possible that we can make mistakes. Therefore, it says almost purified. So, and what are we aiming to do? Well, we're aiming to be able to go back to Godhead. And that's called Vaikuntha, that place where there are no material miseries, no getting old, no getting sick, no dying, no lying, no cheating. It's a wonderful place. But the material world is not such a wonderful place. The material world is a place where there's danger in every step of life. So in the purport, it says, owing to ignorance, one does not know that in this material world, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Now let's think about that. Some people, let's say, well, they're engaging in a lot of sense gratification, or they're very rich, or they're very handsome, and they're like a movie star, etc. There's a lot of different so-called successful people in the material world. But and then they think that life is good. But yet, here it says that this material world is a place of misery. So people are trying to find a place where there's no misery, but they're looking in the wrong place. Just like one time there was a man, he lost his keys, and it was nighttime. So he was looking for his keys under this light in this what do you call that? A light post. And somebody came and said, "Sir, did you lose something?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "What did you lose?" "My keys." He said, "Did you lose it here where you're looking?" He said, "No." He said, "Where'd you lose it?" "Out there in the field." So the man said, "Well, why aren't you looking for it out there in the field?" He said, "Well, there's no light there." So do you think he'll ever find his keys? No. Because he was only looking where there was light, he didn't want to go look where there was no light. So in the same way, people think that they'll find some kind of liberation in the material world. They're not going to find any liberation in the material world because the material world is a miserable place. They're not going to find their El Dorado. Look that up, El Dorado. El Dorado means heavenly place. And people used to look for it, you know, and they heard about it. There's a place like this called El Dorado.
Yeah, in Western, what is it? The city, El Dorado.
Oh, there might be a city name like that, yeah. But it was a mythical city where it's like heaven on earth. What does it say? El Dorado.
Any place of vast riches, abundance, or opportunity.
Okay. Does it say anything else?
It is also the name of actual cities in Arkansas and Kansas.
Okay. Is there anything else?
El Dorado, what does El Dorado symbolize? El Dorado is a fabled city in South America and is rumored to be full of gold.
There you go.
In the poem, El Dorado symbolizes an unattainable goal or pure happiness in life.
Pure happiness in life.
Pure
Happiness in life. Because of gold.
or suggest some goals or ultimate happiness is not realistically achievable. The poet suggests some goals or ultimate happiness is not realistically achieved. He describes
Who says that? Poe?
oh,
Poe is a poet. He's an English poet. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is like people are always looking for this ideal place, but they're looking in the material world. But the material world is a place of misery. They think that there are some places in the material world where it's heavenly and there's no misery, but that's not true. See, and this is something that is what you would call a recurring, let's say, mistake. People are trying to attain goals that are false and not attainable, unattainable. Yes. Like, going to the moon, that's unattainable.
they are thinking pure happiness in life is unattainable goal.
Who?
Wait. What does El Dorado symbolize? El Dorado is a fabled city in South America, and it is rumored to be full of gold. In the poem, El Dorado symbolizes an unattainable goal or pure happiness in life.
Unattainable goal.
Yeah.
And that's is it from this poem by Poe?
Yes.
Okay.
Poe suggests some goals or ultimate happiness is not realistically achievable.
He says that it's not realistically achieved.
So he's comparing.
He's right.
Yeah, he's comparing that fabled city, which is full of gold, to pure happiness in life. And he's saying that it is unattainable.
Both of them are unattainable. Yeah. Well, he's telling the truth. Yeah. The whole material world. Well, I mean, we know from Bhagavad Gita says same thing. Yeah, to Kalayama Sasvatam. The whole material nature is miserable. Okay, so that's the truth. But yet, everybody is still trying to find a place where they're going to be happy. Just like, they're looking for that ideal house where they'll be happy. Or they're looking for the ideal vacation where they're going to be happy. Or they're looking for the ideal this or ideal that where they're going to be happy. But actually, there's no place in the material world that we're going to be happy, because every place in the material world is going to be subjected to birth, old age, disease, and death. So we only have periods of happiness and also periods of misery. And as we get older, the periods of misery overwhelm the periods of happiness until there's only misery. So ultimately, everyone's going to be a failure in finding El Dorado, that ideal place where there's gold and happiness and sense gratification and so forth. But they're still looking for it. Now, if we listen to what people are saying, like Elon Musk and other people, they're let's say promising that they will be able to become immortal by 2050, and then death will be optional, meaning if you don't want to die, you won't, and if you want to die, you can. So look that up. Who is saying that death will be optional by 2050? Who is claiming or prophesizing that death will be optional by 2050? You see, they always push it out in the future. So by the time you end up at 2050, then they push it up to, well, it's going to be at the 2150. We made a mistake. Does it say anything?
Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah, that's the guy. What's his name again?
Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah, Ray
Kurzweil.
Yeah, he's a Jewish guy, and he makes all these types of unattainable statements, and it's always in the future.
So recently there was an interview.
Okay.
This person who defines singularity, he is also associated with that singularity project. So his own friend.
When computers will be equal to human beings, that singularity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, at some point, all our consciousness can be digitized and can be reactivated.
Right.
And
in other words, you become immortal then.
Yeah, and I think there was an interview and the person who got a Nobel Prize in this category, whatever, he just died the same week.
Who?
His friend.
Oh, his friend.
So he was interviewed like, but he recently passed away. So what do you think about your chances?
Yeah, Ray, what are your chances?
Ray is still hoping he's going to survive.
Well, that's because he's taking a lot of supplements. Yeah, he's got a whole, what do you call it, supplement in his garage or something.
Maharaj, El Dorado is also called the lost city of gold.
Okay, that's why people are looking for it.
Yeah, they are searching for it.
Yeah. Yeah, so what they should search for is not the lost city of gold, but they should search for the presence of God in their heart. See, instead of searching out there, they should go in. That's the real El Dorado. That's the Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. So you don't have to go out and look for these things. You just look inside. And basically, it's by sound vibration. It's by chanting, because then you connect to Krishna. Of course, that's not what they want. See, that's why the man is looking for his keys under the street light and not where he lost the keys, because it's dark there. So for people searching for the truth and for happiness in Krishna consciousness, they don't like that. Therefore, they're searching in a place where they'll never find it, where there's sense gratification or where there's gold. It doesn't mean that when you find gold, you're going to be happy, because oftentimes people kill other people. There's competition to find the gold, and sometimes people get killed looking for gold. So the best thing is, as Prabhupada says here, but one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So that's in the middle of the purport page on text 51. but one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord. So that's who we really are. We're not American or Indian or Gujarati or this thing or that thing. Our real constitutional position is that we're the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus know the position of the personality of Godhead, who's the supreme personality of Godhead. Such a person engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets. What are the Vaikuntha planets? It's the planets where there's no misery, meaning no birth, no old age, no death. So if you want to talk about El Dorado, that's it right there, Vaikuntha. And they're looking for it in the wrong place. Yes. Yeah. The material world, you have to understand, we do understand, it's a miserable place. It's a place where there's birth, death, old age, and disease. So you're not going to find El Dorado or the ideal place in the material world, but you will find it in the spiritual world. However, you can also make the spiritual world, make the material world, or transform it into the spiritual world. And this is explained. How do you do that? You do that by becoming Krishna conscious, because the material world is a false covering that of matter. Matter is also spiritual, and it's also eternal because it's created by Krishna, right? But when it's covered over by sense gratification, it becomes what you call material, something that's subject to decay and so forth. But you can transform matter back into its original form by Krishna consciousness. So you get rid of the curtain of ignorance. You eliminate the curtain of ignorance. Now you see that everything is actually spiritual in the material world, right? Because everything is coming originally from Krishna. It's when it becomes covered by our desire for sense gratification and manipulation, making everything minus Krishna. So then everything gets covered, and we don't actually see that matter is also spiritual. It is coming from Krishna. Everything's coming from Krishna is spiritual. But we're not seeing correctly due to our, what you would call myopic vision. Look up that word, myopic vision.
I found one article where a Catholic scientist, a doctor, challenging Ray Kurzweil, and his article is, "No, Ray Kurzweil is not right again, and you won't meet his immortal soul in the cloud."
Well, that's going a little far there. In other words, he's saying that. Okay, go ahead.
So Ray Kurzweil, a prominent futurist, envisions a future where humans transcend biological limitations, merge with machines, and achieve digital immortality. In a recent Wired article, he reiterated his belief in the imminent arrival of the singularity, a point where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence and enables unprecedented technological and existential transformations. Kurzweil foresees a time when humans will merge with AI, leading to enhanced cognitive abilities and even the possibility of uploading one's consciousness to cloud, thus achieving a form of digital immortality. While Kurzweil's optimism captivates many, It also raises important questions, particularly from a Catholic perspective. What I want to do in this article is to provide pushback to Kurzweil's understanding of mind and consciousness using Bernard Lonergan's theory of intentional consciousness and Robert Duran's concept of psychic conversion, again arguing Kurzweil's vision is fundamentally flawed. The Catholic tradition holds that human consciousness is not merely a product of biological processes and computational simulations, but involves a spiritual dimension that cannot be replicated or transferred to machines. Catholic teaching emphasizes the unity of body and soul, reflecting the belief that human beings are created in the image and likeness of God. The image.
Let's see, that's wrong. The unity of body and soul. There's no such thing as the unity of body and soul.
Yeah, hylomorphism. That's the word.
Yeah, they can make any word they want, but I don't think I'm wrong, but if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But how can you equate the soul with something that's material?
Yeah, in fact, the very next statement is wrong in that way. The unity implies that the body and soul are not separate entities, but rather interdependent, forming a single integral human person.
That's not true either.
Yeah, that's wrong. The soul is the spiritual. I mean, you got some things right and you got a lot of things wrong. The soul is the spiritual principle that animates the body, which is right, providing it with life and identity. Right, that's right. Consequently, soul cannot be reduced to a mere set of computational processes or data points. Catholic doctrine upholds the inherent dignity of human person, which is grounded in this body-soul unity and divine image. Each human being possesses an inviolable worth and unique purpose bestowed by God. This dignity is not contingent upon one's abilities, achievements, or technological enhancements, but is inherent from the moment of conception until natural death.
That's true. That's false also.
Yeah, that's wrong.
There's no, the soul is eternal. It's not a unit of, not a time.
Body soul unity, right?
No, he's talking about
at the time of conception.
Conception, yeah. Go ahead.
Such a view contrasts sharply with Kurzweil's vision, which seems to reduce human identity to the brain's functionalities and capabilities, potentially neglecting each person's intrinsic value, irrespective of their cognitive enhancements and digital representations.
But they're not talking about the soul, the non-material identity. It's the soul that's eternal. It's not the body that's going to become eternal.
Yeah, because their philosophy itself is flawed. So they're trying to argue.
They're trying to make the body eternal.
Yeah. I mean, they do talk about soul is the kind of the animating principle, spiritual principle that animates body, but they don't understand where the soul comes from. Of course, they think that it actually comes at the time of birth.
Yes.
The divine purpose of human existence, as taught by Catholic Church, encompasses more than the mere extension of life and the enhancement of cognitive faculties. It involves a call to communion with God and others, a journey towards moral and spiritual growth, and ultimate fulfillment in the beatific vision, seeing God face to face in eternal life. That seems to be right.
Yeah.
This transcendent destiny cannot be fulfilled through technological means alone. It requires a relationship with God, nurtured through faith, prayer, and sacraments, which technology cannot substitute. For this reason, Kurzweil's thesis is predicated on an erroneous conception of consciousness. If we accept his conception, then his conclusions as to the future of human consciousness are at least potentially plausible. However, Lonergan's theory of intentional consciousness offers more comprehensive and accurate understanding of the human.
Who is that?
Currently, this Bernard Lonergan's theory of intentional consciousness.
Okay.
So, Lonergan's theory outlines 4 levels of consciousness: experiencing, understanding, judging, and deciding. These levels are not merely sequential steps, but are integrated and cumulative, with each level sublating the previous ones. Intentional
What does
consciousness.
sublate mean? Including?
Yeah, assimilating into a larger one, basically.
Yeah.
Intentional consciousness is characterized by the dynamic and self-transcendent pursuit of knowledge and meaning. Then he explains all these things. Experiencing. Experiencing is the empirical consciousness. This is the empirical level where sensory data is perceived. It involves immediate awareness of objects through senses. Next is understanding, which is intellectual consciousness. At this intellectual level, insights and concepts are formed. This stage involves grasping meanings and relationships with the data of experience. Next level is judging, rational consciousness. The rational level where the validity of understanding is assessed. Critical reflection leads to evaluating whether our insights correspond to reality. Then finally, deciding. This is the rational self-conscious, the existential level where value and action are determined. This stage involves making choices and actions based on judgments about what is truly good and valuable. According to Lerner,
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. There's a flaw here. What is the flaw? The flaw is every human being has 4 fundamental defects. They make mistakes, they're easily illusioned, their senses are imperfect, and they have a cheating propensity. Therefore, no matter whatever they postulate, whatever we postulate, is going to be imperfect. Now, I don't think these scientists agree with that. But go ahead.
And according to Lonergan, intentional consciousness is driven by an unrestricted desire to know, which leads to self-transcendence, a movement towards truth, goodness, and ultimately God. This holistic approach emphasizes that human consciousness is not confined to computational processes but is indissolubly.
In what?
Indissolubly.
No, that's not, you're not pronouncing it correctly.
Indissolubly. Basically indissoluble. Indissolubly. Yeah, indissolubly interwoven with spiritual and moral dimensions that guide our pursuit, our pure desire for knowledge and meaning. So it's basically just going back. This holistic approach emphasizes that human consciousness is not confined to computational process, but is indissolubly interwoven with spiritual and moral dimensions that guide our pursuit, our pure desire for knowledge and meaning. By contrast, Kurzweil's reductionist view fails to account for these complexities. Its focus on technological enhancement of cognitive functions overlooks the integral unity of human consciousness that Lonergan describes. This unity involves not just data processing, but an irreducible engagement with reality through experience, understanding, judgment, and decision making, all oriented towards transcendent values. It is for this reason that Kurzweil's vision of singularity and digital immortality, while technologically intriguing, lacks the depth of insight provided by Lonergan's framework. It is this richer, more integrated understanding of consciousness that reveals the limitations of Kurzweil's thesis and underscores the importance of recognizing the spiritual and moral dimensions of human existence. So that's one framework that they used, which is Bernard Lonergan's theory of intentional consciousness, to say that, Ray is not even considering more than one of those dimensions. Then they also have this Robert Duran's psychic conversion. Robert Duran, a student and propagator of Lonergan's thought, expands.
Of what? Of what?
He's a student and propagator of the Lonergan's thought.
Who's that?
Robert Duran is a student of Lonergan. So it's like is a second person that is building upon the previous framework of Lonergan, the four aspects of the intentional consciousness that we read, like experiencing, understanding, judging, and deciding. So now they're explaining the next concept of psychic conversion. Psychic conversion involves the integration of the psyche with intentional consciousness, aligning emotional and symbolic functions with rational and moral dimensions of the self. It entails a healing and creative process where the psyche is oriented towards the divine and moral good. Duran.
You notice they never mentioned the name Krishna.
This is all Catholics, so they won't even mention. They mention God.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Duran explains that the psychic conversion is essential for a holistic understanding of human consciousness. This concept involves a transformative process where the various dimensions of the psyche are integrated harmoniously with the intellect and will, leading to a well-balanced and fully functioning human person. So he's basically saying that psychic conversion is essential for the holistic understanding of the human consciousness. He's taking one level where he says the transformative process where the various dimensions of the psyche are integrated harmoniously with the intellect and will, leading to a well-balanced and a fully functioning human person. This type of conversion draws upon on depth psychology to elucidate how psychic conversion works. It involves the reconciliation of unconscious elements with the conscious awareness, facilitating the integration of repressed emotions, memories, and desires into a cohesive and conscious self. He's talking about the subconscious and conscious experiences. This process allows individuals to.
That's Freudian philosophy.
This process allows individuals to confront and transcend internal conflicts and traumas that impede the psychological and spiritual growth. In practical terms, psychic conversion manifests a journey towards greater self-awareness and emotional maturity. It helps individuals to recognize and overcome the subconscious patterns and defenses that shape their behaviors and interactions. This healing process enables a person to engage more authentically with experiences, fostering genuine self-appropriation where one's actions and decisions align more closely with their true values and beliefs. For this reason,
No, wait a minute. That's complete nonsense. What are their true values? And
who's determining that?
Yeah, who's determining that?
Like anybody can claim that I believe in this, and then again it becomes subjective.
Yeah.
For this reason, psychic conversion promotes a state of inner harmony.
Psychic conversion to what? What are you converting?
Yeah, they through this word, but my understanding so far is that there is the subconscious experiences people carry that without awareness it drives them to do certain things, but with awareness they rationalize and they try to align with their value system. So that's what
Their value system. See, that's a mistake right there. The value system is given by God. It's not that they can postulate or they can, imagine a value system. You see, this whole thing is minus God.
Yeah, they go round and round.
Yeah.
There's so many words thrown here.
Yeah, it sounds good, but it sounds so good that you don't understand a damn thing. That's their trick. See, they manipulate language and they tie your brain up, and then you stop trying to understand what they're saying and you just surrender to it. That is that's a trick, I say. All right, so let's hear something real. And this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text number 24. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavya Brahmakarma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Okay. Purport. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul engaged in material material contamination a conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds, in other words, yogurt. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna, or activities or sacrifices simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma or Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahmajyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahmajyoti. But when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together Brahman, or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter, dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or the leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Now, this is a much better explanation. You see, it's a much better explanation of what they're saying. They just twist you up, and then you just give up and you say, "Well, they must know what they're talking about." So this purport. This is the fourth chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and 24th verse. I'm sorry, Bhagavad Gita says how activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. What's the spiritual goal? Let's go back to Godhead. So whatever they're saying there, they're trying to make everything minus Krishna. And what are they leading to? What is their ultimate goal? That's what we have to decide. Or that's what we have to understand from what they're saying. Is it immortality?
They're saying digital immortality.
Right.
Okay,
An artificial immortality.
Yeah, artificial immortality.
Right. Who wants that? That's nonsense. Artificial immortality could be destroyed at any time. You have all these, what do you call those guys? They're always hacking. The hackers can destroy the artificial immortality. They just hack into your system and erase everything. Huh?
Or the power goes away.
Yeah, or the power goes away.
Servers are down.
Yeah. Services are down, yeah. You see how artificial the whole thing is, Whereas this is the real thing, which being explained on this is chapter 4, verse 24. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavya Brahmakarma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So there are 5, let's say, primary elements. One is the process of offering. 2, there are 5 primary elements for sacrifice. 1 is the process of offering. 2 is the offering. 3 is the fire. 4 is the sacrifice. And 5 is the result of the sacrifice. So in other words, how activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verse. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna, or activities or sacrifices simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma or Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahmajyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahmajyoti, but when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman, or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter, dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna, or sacrifice for the absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor or the contribution, the consumption, the performer or the leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. There you go. You know, so instead of all that blah, 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 this makes sense.
Yeah, maybe.
You see how clear Prabhupada is, you know? Yeah.
Absolute truth covered by Maya is matter. Matter doubted for the cause of absolute truth again becomes spiritual.
Yeah.
And right now,
we're all living in the material, in things that are they're considered a material veil. But it can be, the material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, everything becomes purified. The material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman or the absolute truth. This is real knowledge.
Is this the same as the Panchatattva?
The Panchatattva, the five truths.
Like the Panchatattva that in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah.
I'm just asking because I'm trying to draw the parallel. Like what? I know we're way past time.
That's okay. We're not going anywhere.
So what is Panchatattva?
The five truths.
Yes, Panchatattva.
Mm-hmm.
The five truths are Chaitanya is regarded as manifestation of Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan. Nityananda is Krishna's first personal expansion with the combined power of the god Balarama, brother of Krishna. Advaitacharya is the combined power of the deities Vishnu and Shiva. Srivasa is Krishna's pure devotee and symbolizes devotion. Gadadhara is the combined power of Krishna's internal energy, Shiva.
Okay. So all these energies are actually personal. They're not the material things. They're actually spiritual. Everything is spiritual. It's when there's sense gratification, it covers the spiritual nature of things. Remove the sense gratification, and then you can see that everything is actually spiritual. Matter is also spiritual. It's coming from Krishna, right? The only difference is, and matter is also eternal. The only difference is sometimes it's manifest and sometimes it's not manifest. Whereas the spiritual reality is always manifest. So even the material world is spiritual and it's eternal, right? There's eternal cycles going on in the material world. Right? What's temporary is our attempt to make the material world eternal. Right? I'm not make it. Our attempt to engage in sense gratification. That's not eternal, and that's a fact. Sense gratification, it doesn't last very long. Right? But the material world is eternal also. The matter is eternal. It can't be destroyed. There's and that's even the scientists know there's conservation of energy, and there's and it's going on all the time where energy is converted into matter and the matter is converted back to energy. So that means the conservation. Look up this phrase, conservation of energy.
Aspire to go back out of this material world as long as the material wheel is uncovered and we experience spiritual world right here.
Well,
but of course we have death and again we have to be born to again serve. But because even material world is eternal, so people are okay continuing.
all right. The point is, because you have an eternal soul, it is possible that you could eternally stay in the material world. But that's because you haven't fully attained Krishna consciousness. If you fully attain Krishna consciousness, you go back to the spiritual. The material world is a place where people who are engaging in sense gratification, basically, right? So the goal is to go back to Godhead. It's not to stay in the material world. And the material world is spiritual because you can't destroy it. But it's like a prison. Just like you have prisons and you have freedom, right? So freedom is in the spiritual world, and the material world is a prison that we can get out of.
So when Prabhupada was here, he was fully in
spiritual
consciousness.
Yes.
So even the material things were not having any effect. The Maya didn't have any effect on him.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
True.
So in that case, he's already experienced.
Just like Harivilas Thakur, he was approached twice. One by a lady who was very beautiful, and the second time was Maya Devi herself. Maya Devi herself tried to make him fall down, and he did not fall down. And then she surrendered to him and became his disciple. And he taught her how to chant Hare Krishna. That's Maya Devi. So that just proves that it is possible to overcome the illusion of the material world. It is possible.
For Prabhupada, whether he is here or whether he is in Golaka, he is still with Krishna and serving him in the same consciousness. Right?
Well, he's with Krishna, yes. But when you say same consciousness, what do you mean by that?
He's with Krishna.
Yeah.
And he's seeing Krishna in everything and he's serving Krishna.
Yes.
Even when he's in material world. So for him, there is no difference between Golaka and this material world.
There's no difference. Well, there is a difference between the material world and the spiritual world, but Prabhupada was not influenced by the material world. Right? Material world is a place that's temporary. I mean, our sojourn in the material world is temporary because we have a body that's not immortal. Yeah.
But Krishna is so Prabhupada, even though he was in the material world, he was always with Krishna. And according to the principle of Krishna's words that in the 8th chapter, Antakaleja Mam Eva Smaran Mukva Kalevaram, right? So he said that at the time of death, whoever remembers him, it's like
Yes.
then he will be transported to the spiritual world or the Krishna's abode, where he never has to come back.
Yes.
So it's not that Prabhupada was affected by the material world at all, but I think in fact he came.
Now he said himself there was never a time that he forgot Krishna.
Yeah.
That means from his earliest, consciousness as a child till he left his body, he was always Krishna conscious. Yeah.
So I also heard some devotees prayers saying that even if I get to be born in the material world,
Let me be born near the devotees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me be a worm, but in the association with devotees. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the main point. You just take this one point from today. It's very profound, and it's in the 4th chapter, verse 24 that we read already. But it says, the absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter, dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. So that's a very profound statement. And this is what we should understand. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetails for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the absolute. Okay, so it's a very powerful, 4th chapter, 24th verse. Very, very powerful verse, very, very profound purport. So, what is Krishna consciousness? Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. So that means by chanting Hare Krishna and following the principles of Krishna consciousness, we can change our destiny. We can change our whole life from materialism to spiritual life. So people like this, what's his name? He can't, he has no access to spiritual world.
Hmm.
He has no access to real immortality. Krishna.
I know it's pretty long, so thank you, devotees, for standing by.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions?
Any questions?